Welcome back, everyone. We are gearing up to a third game here in the NLC, which is going to be Riddle versus Dusty. One team with a mediocre start and one team with a very bad start. Dan, Orcs, what are we expecting today?
I feel like Riddle are coming into this one favored, obviously off the standings, but also it feels like this team has maybe a little bit of a rough start to the split, but they started to pull things together. And I think in particular, one player I was quite critical of early on was their mid laner, Slowq, and he started off quite a bit more stronger performances in the later game. And I feel like with that coming through, you can see that jungler MC start to feed off that and have a really strong early game performance that can really feed out into the other lanes.
Now, Dan, I need to stop calling you guys Dan. You're both Dan. Just foxtrot. I remember it as you actually put Dusty here as the only person. Why is that?
Okay, well, so Dusty, after beating Flank Rising last week, being 0-5 against the 5-node team and then putting it forward, I've got some faith. I've got some faith. Yeah, yesterday wasn't great, but I really didn't like their draft. So I'm hoping in this pick and ban phase here, if Dusty can get something simple, easy to execute, like we saw out of Clover even, when they were able to pick up an upset win, arguably against Granite. I just think that's where it all begins. And so for Dusty, just pick what you're happy playing, and pick things that aren't too hard to play either, and it's a perfect start for them.
I think for me, something that I think is worth highlighting is the jungle matchup here. Both Sawyer and MC have had games but they've completely taken over it and just had such a good early game, transitioned it, and the other team hasn't had a chance to breathe. I think that these two are really aggressive, and that also can backfire. So the jungle matchup for me is really important. And as always, whenever there's an emphasis put on the jungle matchup, the mid matchup is really relevant as well to sort of provide that priority and pressure.
So, Orcs, let me challenge you before the first picks are starting to come through. What matchup are we looking through in today's game with Dusty and Riddle? What are you predicting to be the driving factors here?
What, like role?
Yeah.
I mean, I think jungle. I think jungle diff will define this one. And as always, jungle diff is mid diff, because if your mid is losing, you don't have that priority, you are really going to struggle. So I think prioritizing heavily in the mid jungle is important, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that reflected in the draft.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear. Thresh coming in here as the first pick, and well, a strong pick. We've seen a lot of that already today. What do you make of it, Foxtrot?
Yeah, I think Thresh is like super strong in the meta right now, and also just as far as like comfort, I think Blue's a pretty good Thresh player. Plus, you can deny it away from PlayStation. Is it PlayStation is the Thresh player? I think it is PlayStation that likes Thresh. Yeah, so you pick that one away right there, and I think it's a good first pick. Yeah, yeah, completely. He's actually just like, he's a real big fan of the guy from Game of Thrones. What's his name? I don't know, yeah, whatever. Anyway, moving on rapidly. So we got a Rumble and a Set on the other side. Speaking of takeaway picks, Set is Zombie's most played champion as well this split, so get that one away from him too.
Seems like so far more priority put towards the bot lane from Dusty. Varus Dash, really strong combo. You have that peel and safety, and Varus can just poke from a huge distance. But on the other side, already Riddle have got the makings for a pretty strong team fight composition, pretty effective in skirmishes. And one thing I'm a little bit concerned about is Dusty haven't looked to prioritize that jungle at all. We did see Riddle take away Sawyer's Nidalee. They will be going to the second rotation, which gives an opportunity for Riddle to really thin out that role.
And with this last pick to come through, they could still go for solo laners here, but out of nowhere, it's actually the Ashe to come through, a champion we really haven't seen much. Orcs, you're giving that a bit of a reaction. Why is that?
Not a huge fan, in all honesty. I guess I can understand the thought process. It's decent in lane up against the Varus. You have that engage potential, which is going to be pretty important because you'll just get poked down otherwise. But I feel like Ashe is pretty weak in the current meta. A lot of these skirmishes can really have a hard time. And if Renekton's ever on a flank, it's going to be a little bit rough for Gooby, especially as you don't have a Thresh to protect you because it's been taken away. And now Dusty can start to hammer away at the support options to limit that peel available to you.
I think that's tough.
Kench, Braum. There's not a lot of these yet, but they're still deciding to go for some of these solo laners here, Nocturne being the one banned away, and perhaps they want to solidify the Renekton up in the top side where there's still some counters available to this one.
Okay, so Viego is still open. I think he's another champion that you can pick and kind of, I guess you won't have to flex him if you're Dusty, but like you've got options here about what you want to play in the jungle still. I am worried for the Ashe still because I think you can. Okay, you're forced to pick something defensive here to protect her a little bit, else you can just get dogpiled, just like we saw last game. Honestly, with the Victor, it's full engage comp, and Victor just really couldn't play the game. So this Braum lock-in, I think, is really, really important. Actually, good to keep this Ashe safe.
Yeah, I think it gives you a lot of power in skirmishes. And decent in the 2v2. I still think Thresh is pretty fine into Braum compared to things like Leona and Alistair, which may struggle a bit more when engaging. But ultimately, I don't think it's a bad bot lane for the side of Riddle. And the thing I like is that it keeps that set open as a flex. You can obviously offer that between mid and top lane and essentially forces Dusty to blind pick. They opt for the Orianna, which is generally seen as a pretty safe blind in this situation. And then it now comes down to what they want to secure for Sawyer. They did get the Xin Zhao taken away, but there's still things like the Volley Bear open and available as an option. It really comes down to what he wants to do.
Now, let's remember there were some nerfs to the control mage. Its facials got a bit nerfed. We did see Orianna opt into the Unseal Spellbook instead, but generally a champion that has fallen out of meta with a lot of melees coming into this one. So it seems like Viego is going to go into the jungle. Now, Set is a flex pick, could go mid, could go top. What are we looking for here as the counter? Is it going to be top? Is it going to be mid? That is going to be our answered question in just a few moments.
Yeah, the hover would suggest it was going into the mid side. I mean, it is just a hover, but Nara's obviously fairly okay. Yeah, Malphite also fairly good into the Renaton. Okay, so this again, you're going for the all-in. I like, you got the Ashe ult E signals things off, Malphite, red carpet, bam, you go forward, right? And I think that's something like having the Thresh is really good to peel away and to protect against that. Orianna provides some control as well. But depending on the situations, like Thresh isn't known to be that big beefy frontliner either. Like even he can be caught out of position and he can be in trouble too. So I like having this full engage option. I think engage is simple to play, really, really effective. We see it a lot in NLC as well. It can pay real dividends, and I like it. I like it what Riddle's done.
I really think Dusty are going to struggle when it comes to these team fights because there's so much to absolutely annihilate the backline, and unless they're playing it flawlessly and we see Sawyer popping off, I feel like the Canna just has a chance for them to get steamrolled. If they do get a fed though, obviously Orianna and Varus, if they can position well and use the Thresh to sort of give them some extra mobility essentially, we may see them pull this one back, but I feel like Riddle are coming into this with a really decisive composition.
That is great to hear. Good game is in front of us, and who would be better to take us through it than our two anime protagonists, Viperoon and Jamada? Take it away.
Huh. Anime protagonists. They're getting. I think they're getting nice.
More creative,
honestly.
yeah.
I know he's the first time hosting, so you gotta go for those throws. But we're gonna jump in immediately on a pause, so there'll be a little bit of a time for us to talk about these two team compositions, which is great because Jamada, I don't know if you know anything about me, but I love compositions, and from experience casting me, that you just kind of want to click your R button and go.
So,
and Riddle, my friends, have done just that.
Yeah, they have, indeed. It's a really easy to execute team composition. The skill floor is really low. It's not a high threshold to meet for Riddle, realistically. So I don't think there's a whole bunch of, pressure on them to really make anything happen in the early game either. So we'll have to see how exactly that means Dusty will respond. I don't necessarily think there's like a crazy outscale on either side here. I think that a lot of the merits of Riddle's team composition in terms of, being able to sort of just go on a whim, engage, and then dive forward on a whim, kind of takes away from some of the safety and scaling aspects of Dusty's team composition when it comes to, Orianna. Viego can struggle with burst, right? Because at the end of the day, Viego wants to have these sort of longer drawn-out team fights sometimes where he can sort of lifesteal up and then siphon some forms. If he's not allowed to do that because he or his teammates kind of just get bursted down and all of a sudden the focus is on him after that, he can also struggle. So I think, honestly, I'm looking towards Dusty and saying, what lane are you going to look to attack here? Because I think up on the top side, if you let Malphite sort of hit level 5, level 6 onwards, it just gets really difficult to, outright murder him without having some kind of response come down from Riddle. On the bottom side, you do have a lot of setup when it comes to Death Sentence, Chains of Corruption once M-Test is level 6. So there's stuff to work around there. But Viego, generally speaking, doesn't have the strongest ganks unless these Riddle members or just champions in general are overextended on the enemy team, and he's then set up that way. So have to keep our eyes on Sawyer to see exactly what he decides to prioritize, whether it's trying to hit level 6 really quickly gain access to that ultimate and then have slightly stronger skirmishing power, or whether it's going to be sort of closer along the lines of trying to fight ASAP, whilst he should have sort of an advantage over Rumble until the equalizer comes in, and then you start thinking about all of the other ultimate tools available to Riddle too.
For sure, and it's quite interesting because Riddle, you look at their team composition, you instantly think team fight, right? You got Malphite, Rumble, Ashe, Braum, Set. Like, it's crazy that Set might have the worst team fight ultimate of those 5.
I mean, Ashe probably.
Or Ashe, yeah.
Ashe is probably like, you know, Ashe is more of a pick tool, sort of a fishing ultimate first, sort of. Hey, let's see if we can make something happen. That's the kind of ultimate to me that Ashe kind of has. That being said, I kind of have to lean over here. There's no cleanses on the Dusty side, so Ashe ultimate actually does have a lot of potency in this game. And if those Ashe arrows land, like until something like a QSS comes out, or maybe a Mikhail's from Thresh, which realistically supports don't get another item after their mythic. It's just like mythic components unless the game goes 40 minutes or some kind of silly scenario like that. So they're gonna have to keep track of Gooby. You're gonna have to keep track of how these arrows get thrown out. Make sure they're not in complete fog all of the time. Otherwise, they can get caught off guard by the Ashe arrow. But I mean, Malphite's in the game, Rumble's there. Fighting in chokes is going to be a pain. Kind of on both sides. Fighting into chokes for both teams is going to be a bit of a struggle unless it's a bit of an unforced error in positioning from either or. Because things like Malphite ultimate, Orianna on the opposite side. Loads of tools that both teams are going to have to keep track of and be very wary of when it comes to positioning.
Absolutely. You've got M-Test, Varus Ultimate. You've got the box as well from Thresh, which is a little bit less hard, but still a pretty potent tool as we do find our way back onto the Rift. Thank you for bearing with us in that little pause, but things all seem to be good, and we're moving on to the Rift. So, Jamada, is there one of these 2 team compositions that you particularly prefer?
I mean, I think in terms of a pure objective, hey, you're asking Coach Jamada, I'd probably go with Riddles. I think that it's a little harder to punish on the Dusty side of things, and just the execution skill floor is just low. It's really hard to mess up a team composition like this. And as you can see in the mid lane, it's like, okay, Warzy can't really force out slow Q. You've got Fleet Footwork, Thorin Shield, all of the innate sort of passive regen that Set gets. And also if he's running second wind too, it just gets even more obnoxious to the point where it's like the lower he gets, the more health regen he gets. You'll see he's probably regenning about 5 HP or more per second at the moment. It's just really hard to deal with. As you can see, Warzy trading out pots to try and poke him out, but at the end of the day, the regen is just too much. So priority will probably stay in Slowq's favor for now, especially after level 1 and how that's gone, and how Warzy traded off the pots for that. And that can definitely benefit MC, who certainly can and has gotten the ball rolling for Riddle on multiple occasions on certain picks. And the Rumble's certainly a very, very hard snowballing champion. This time around running the Conqueror, I think it's pretty okay here. I don't think it's terrible. I think you see a lot of options come through, Dark Harvest, Predator sometimes as well. All typically pretty fine. I think Predator, when you need to try and force ganks, or you need a little more backline access, gank access in general, is really good, and Dark Harvest for the flat damage is nice. Conqueror in this game, where team fights may end up being a little more prolonged after the initial snap engage onto key targets, can definitely work its magic as well.
And that's why I wanted to ask you as well, so it's a good segue there, that is there one of these 2 teams that needs to force stuff early? Because of course Riddle have this really great team fighting composition later. Dusty seem to have a lot of late game options as well, as Kex needs to be a little bit careful as Soya moving forward gets the stun. Flash is available, the slow coming through, but he's going to be stunned up after the flash, and the Malphite will be cut down. First blood goes over to Viego.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to say, I feel like answering your question, because that was a pretty bog standard gank, I feel like despite, in theory, on paper, you would probably give the scaling edge to Dusty, I actually think it's them that might have to be more proactive, because I think team fighting is going to be not necessarily impossible, but it's going to be very, very difficult to navigate. Especially if Riddle can find consistent lane priority in some of these lanes. It's going to be very hard in the mid game to approach these guys, walk into their territory where they're the ones with the engage ultimates. I think we need to look at the top side, because Soya has managed to stay in the bush. He's cheesing Kex, and well,
teleported in. He's got the move speed. MC coming through now, so it will be a 2v2, and Zombie
Alright.
going to be burning low. Renekton goes down, so does Sawyer. It's one apiece for the top side of Riddle, and they make that long play put pay.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, Sawyer, he sticks around for the cheese gank. He makes Hex think that he's reset, but MC is there, immediately flashes in, knows that Zombie doesn't have flash, he dies, and then Sawyer soon to follow as slow Q, getting aggressive onto Warzy here. Just being a bit of a nuisance, as Boots plus no Magic Mantle is definitely going to help some of his trading patterns out. As here you go, the replay of this re-gank, and you can just see the movement speed like you highlight in the play-by-play moment. Just keep Hex out of auto attack range, consistent damage range, and see Sawyer, Zombie, they don't have the damage to take him down. They can't follow up on him. And with that alone, means the MC has the time to make it here, as we've got an insight. That's top lane Zombie, most recently played for Godsend last year. Correct, finishing 5th place, losing the tiebreak to Granite, which was very, very unfortunate for them. As Zombie, speaking how, has made his way into the mid lane, but
Blue burning down. He's already gone. A Zombie going to get stunned up by those two guys and blows Sawyer diving on through. Set out the back of the fight. Needs to survive. Will do as the double kill comes through for MC. PlayStation so low. Sawyer dives forward but can't get the damage as Braum walks away. It's disastrous for Dusty and a perfect play for Riddle.
the Blade of the Ruin King leaves potentially Sawyer's mental in Ruin after flashing forward, doesn't get the kill onto play, and that's a pretty big deal. You at least want to try and trade something back, considering you're the ones that made or tried to force that play open. But it's Riddle with the members there as well. More members, a wave being bled in the top side, a plate going over to Kex on the top side as well. Honestly, all things going in Riddle's favor right now, as it's another pause. It wouldn't be an NLC day without at least a couple. We'll have an update for you ASAP, but yeah, I mean, Riddle right now getting a pretty successful early game off. And again, it's all about this man in the jungle, MC. Orc said this would be the matchup to watch, and so far he's definitely delivered. He's been in the right places at the right times. And yeah, he just made Thresh disappear. He just decided to be a magician.
I was, because we started talking about Zombie, and I was like, oh, Renekton's moved down, this could be interesting.
Yeah, he's in the mid
I
lane.
just kind of looked to the side, and then there's just a dead Thresh, and the health bar was just like, no, I'm not here anymore, because MC doing so much damage, doesn't even have many items just yet, but Rumble has this ability to just melt through health bars. And
yeah.
he's not even 6 yet. And we saw yesterday the equalizer. We're going to see this play again, and just look at Baloo coming up.
Yeah, so he sat in the bush in a... I can't remember what the correct term is, but he sat right below the overheat threshold. And you see Harpoon into the Flame Spear with all of those overheat autos. Blue just doesn't stand a chance, doesn't get to proc Aftershock. Or he doesn't even have Aftershock, he's running Guardian. And then the Renekton, of course, moved in to the middle of the lane with the ultimate from Slow Q. Blade of the Ruin King doesn't connect from Sawyer either, so... It's just tough. It's just very unfortunate. Honestly, I have to credit Dusty in the sense of, you know, I think this was a correct play. They used the priority that Zombie did have from the top side, and they tried to be proactive, like I feel like they sort of have to be. I feel like if you keep the game even, you potentially struggle. If you're going to try and rely on item spikes, I think you've got to wait, you know, an item and a half for the Orianna, potentially even longer. Realistically, the Varus wants his Muramana and the Prowler's Claw in his inventory before he wants to sort of, you know, sit in front of these objectives, lay down loads and loads and loads of poke. But I mean, there's maybe an argument against that. You can just say he wants level 9 and Prowlers, and that's kind of it. From there, it just kind of gets more irritating. But at the end of the day, the point still stands. Very item spike reliant, whereas Riddle, they don't necessarily care too hard. It's more about the key target selection from their ultimates and who they can actually blow up. And if you give them a gold lead, then, I mean, at that point, it might not even start to matter, as they can kind of just kill whoever they want to on the map and then force numbers advantage off that.
Back onto the Rift, thank you for sticking with us. And this bot lane actually going to see a little bit of action as MC lays down the equalizer. There's the crystalline arrow as well, and M-Test is just gone. He doesn't even try and get away at this point, because I was about to say that bot lane's been a little bit too quiet, but MC finally decided to go down.
Yeah, goes down to the bottom side. Arrow on top of the equalizer. I know it looked like he was just off of it, but I believe the way his HP bar was being burned, he was on top of the equalizer as well. Now MC got this Cloud Dragon, and honestly, again, another pretty high value Cloud Dragon. When you think about how ultimate reliant, or how frequently Riddle are likely to play around their ultimates when it comes to these skirmishes. They like to have it, honestly, maybe even would prefer it as the soul over almost any other dragon in the game.
But
won't be
they'll
the
take
case.
it in the first one.
They'll take it in the first one. They'll be happy with that either way. And now I just want to see kind of what Riddle decide to do. I feel like the options or the realistic path is to just sort of prioritize all of these neutral objectives, and then how Dusty are going to respond, because they've had a lot of priority up in this top side. They tried to make that first gank. They forced that first gank rather, and it worked. They tried to force the second one, and it didn't. Sawyer is currently counter jungle, but doesn't seem like Riddle are even going to notice this. So cheeky little takeaway from the Dusty jungler, but Dusty, they have to try and find an in. They've got a couple of decent tools, right? You talk about Chains of Corruption, Thresh existing. Trying to bring Sawyer down to this lane could potentially be pretty high yield as Gooby.
That's
Gooby?
Is he in the game?
Was that DC?
Are we?
I
The Observer's shocked. I am too. I assumed that we were going to get a pause there, but was the other side. Let's just move on. You know what, Gooby, get a banana down you. And for reference, that's his favourite gaming stack, according to an interview that we had earlier in the day. We're going to see Riddle grabbing themselves the Rift Tail, and I'm just going to keep moving on. There's the pause. So we managed to do that. Observer, just as a heads up, we don't want a replay of that kill during this pause. Don't need it. But I mean, that the time between the last pause and this one was.
So, Gooby, just for a little bit of extra context, has now disconnected from the game, but he was walking back to lane. So I'm actually not entirely sure.
Attack move? Probably? Right? You'd hope. Nah. Observer, why? What's the need?
But he's moving forward. This is the thing. So it's hard to tell because he's auto-attacking champion.
Why is it on loop?
He's not casting, but I don't know. I don't know.
Why is it on loop?
It is actually just bullying, but I mean, it has to be a connectivity issue, right? There's no way you make that kind of decision in the moment. Trying to.
Well,
yeah, a lot of connectivity issues, kind of riddling, no pun intended, this game. Hopefully, we can get as many of them resolved as possible to play the game out as smoothly as possible. Seems like some routers might be Dusty, apparently.
Nice. That's the other team that's in this game.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Take a step back for the moment. Sort of talk about the game and the grand scope of things. The items, nothing's really in just yet. Nothing too, important. Taking a look at the Dusty side of things, just the Iron Spike Whip for the Renekton. Components for the Divine Sunder up for the Viego. Still the tier, nothing really else in the inventory for Orianna. And still the makings of that Lethality item for the Varus. And on the opposite side, again, loads of components. One thing I will note, MC is actually on an 8 stack Dark Seal. So, Medjai's maybe.
Sure.
I think the way this game's going, it certainly could be one of those. As just sort of trying to get a peek over at the chat. I don't think... No signs of unpause just yet. But yeah, I think for Riddle, they can call this a pretty successful early game. They've had priority in a fair amount of their lanes. I think flexing set down into the mid lane away from the Renekton lane into Orianna has really paid a huge amount of dividends. It's meant that MC's kind of been able to move anywhere on the map that he's wanted to without threat of really having a response from Warzy, whether it's rotating up or just, teleporting outright. And for the other side of Dusty, they tried to force the plays top. It's not really worked. Again, it's sort of as highlighted, right? You want to try and pick on Malphite, before he hits sort of level 5, level 6, and then he starts to get really obnoxious to take down, realistically before the first base, right? And they do that on this gank right here on your screen, and they get the first kill, and then Sawyer does, honestly, I think it's a smart play. Sitting here waiting until Kex is sort of baited in with a false sense of security that he's not here anymore, he would have reset. But it's just the timing of it. 430, 435, 440. If you've not seen the enemy jungler, and I think they knew that he started on the top side, just a bold guess, you have to at least sort of expect that he could be on this side of that. after that clear, especially after he's reset. I mean, whilst the jungle timers are sort of longer, at the end of the day, a lot of junglers that do have these full clear pans are still, you know, they're very linear, very predictable. So they get punished for it, unfortunately. Hopefully for them, they can try and find a lane to pick on. Again, they've got the tools from the bottom side of the map. I think that's probably their best bet at this point. I think Malphite's going to be too hard to pick on. I think Set's got too much mobility and too much tankiness to really burst down. So I think it's got to be through Gooby and through PlayStation. They've got to try and abuse these two members on Riddle, Dusty. Otherwise, they're going to struggle, and they're going to continually lose some of these neutral objectives, and fighting into them is going to continue to be very, very oppressive with all of these teamfight elements.
It'll be difficult, and we've got a little bit of update. Hopefully, we'll be getting back into the game relatively shortly, but it's been a very, very interesting game. And I think for me, MC, definitely the player to keep your eye on. We say this so much about Rumble jungles because the cooldown of your ultimate is way shorter than it necessarily should be. As we do move back onto the Rift, MC just picked up the Rift Herald as well, which means that he's going to be able to invest some gold somewhere around the map. And honestly, as long as he's getting some of that money, that moolah, it's all going to be good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be pretty close to what I assume will be, I guess in this game, Night Harvest is probably the better of the two choices. Though Rocket Belt wouldn't be too terrible either. But he's got the components for one of those two items. We saw on the bottom side, a couple of plates traded for this Herald. Of course, Gooby had to make his way back down to the lane after that death. But let's see what they can do with it. In terms of Herald usage this game, I would probably want to... Okay, nice flash.
Very nice flash.
Yeah. Just pure reactions right there. Great flash from Wolsey. And yeah, in terms of where I'd want to see this Herald used, I guess it has to just kind of be the bottom side, right? Or realistically, I think MC should just use it for himself. In the case of you find a lane which just so happens to be the lowest or just has the best chance of giving you the most plates, and you accelerate yourself. You don't actually care about what lane it goes into per se. Putting it into the Ashe would be nice, but at the end of the day, I feel like Ashe is honestly going to be more of a facilitator this game with the ultimates. And if she's allowed to get those auto attacks in, great. But I think into Orianna, Varus, Diego, it's going to be very difficult to do that. So MC, it's one of the few times where as a jungler, I think he should prioritize getting as many plates as he can off the Herald for himself as opposed to his lane.
Which does make some kind of sense. It's not the end of all things if MC gives it to that bot side and Gooby gets that money, or if you get in the mid lane. What are we?
He's done it. He's got Magi. So keep our eyes on the death note for MC.
You can be on stack duty, Jamal.
I'll be on
That's your job for the rest of the game. It's just to keep your eyes on that Magi's, when it gets sold, how many stacks it's on, or if it gets sold at all, because MC shown no signs of dying thus far, has shown a lot of signs of causing death for the enemy team. 3-0-2, and hasn't picked up the Mythic just yet, but with those boots and that Magi's, he's going to be hurting a lot, and he was already hurting quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the Magi's, of course, he is able to pick up more kills. It's just going to snowball him even further ahead. It's just going to be even more oppressive to deal with. Now, Dragon's 1 minute away. I think in terms of lane states, looking into MC's actually forcing mid lane priority right now. I'm not sure he's going to drop the Herald though. And could you see a full-on rotation? It depends on what Slowkey wants to do, but I expect a rotation down to the bottom side here. Try and pick on the bottom side of Dusty. They do have summoners, but at the end of the day, if it's Ashe Arrow connect.
Goes wide, though. The concussive blows will land from the Winter's Bite, and there's the ultimates coming down, but neither of them land the way that they should, so MC and PlayStation can't keep the fight going. Dusty, get a little bit of poke on the back end, but that wasn't necessarily the play that you want Riddle to make just before Dragon spawns.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, Rumble Equalizer, again, we just spoke about, it's relatively low cooldown. I think it's still going to have about 30 to 40 seconds once Dragon spawns up. But Ashe Arrow, however, at this moment in the game, is still kind of a longish cooldown, though it's matching the rotation on the HUD of Rumble. So I guess maybe not. As I think Flays is the only one that's going to be very long. And with those almost used, honestly, yeah, Dusty, I think doing the right thing here. Holding on to River Priority for now. And if they want to start up, I don't think there's too big of a threat right now. If they can get this one bursted down, Riddle very reliant on skirmishing with their ultimates. But if MC walks into Sawyer whilst he's on the pit, that could be an issue. But Dusty, yeah, There's the move.
Teleport coming down. Wolves needs to be very, very careful making his way out there. Goes the Reptile being dropped down there. Dragon is going to go low. It's secured by Dusty, and the fight will break up, but they only managed to get onto the Malphite. So much damage coming through his set. Breaks up the backline, and the damage is massive coming down from Riddle. They pick up everyone who can't get out of the pit. Only 2 members fall from Dusty. They get the objective, but the fight goes the other way.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, Dragon Soul, I don't believe it being an ocean is going to make or break this game either. So picking up that one Infernal Soul to deny the early soul, it's not even the biggest thing in the world. Gooby's going to pick up a bunch of plates now, which we spoke about, of course. Did want to see maybe MC use it for himself, but dropped it at the start of that fight to make sure he could just get that extra pressure, and they won it. And now Gooby's getting a massive injection of gold on top of that as well. They can feel pretty happy about that. About 800 gold just from the tower alone funneled into Gooby, maybe even a little bit more than that. So he should be pretty much ready to pick up his first item, match the power spike of M-Test here. Of course, the Lethality item is going to hold a little more potency just because Lethality very early on lost spike quite hard on Varus, but get the replay. Teleport comes down from Kex, it forces Warzy away. It's on the opposite side of the wall. Flash away from MC means that Death Sentence connects with Kex, but it's this suplex which just breaks the fight open entirely for Riddle. Dusty have to go into a full retreat mode. The equalizer comes back up from MC as well. There's just no response from Dusty. The only silver lining is that they picked up that dragon to ensure that early soul isn't necessarily the case. But slow Q picked on here. Slayer doing a great job. Then comes in, but
that's really nice. The equalizer, the crystalline arrow, the unstoppable force, the damage coming down. Slow Q goes low, but he's still alive. He's just sustaining through. Will burn down in the end. Warzy is going to be chased through and taken out. So much damage from Riddle, and take a bow, Slow Q. That was all on your back.
Man, I don't like calling games super early, but
oh, don't do it. Don't you do it.
After a fight like that, we could be approaching a pretty early finish for this one. It's still only a 4,000 gold lead, but man, you don't want to get demolished in a small skirmish like that when you're already behind.
Not Slow Q here, man.
I mean, yeah, Slow Q just does a great job of locking down everybody with that face breaker. They just all commit on top of him. I mean, look at this. Landon comes in. I think even M-Test. It's just a flash forward as well, so it's, you know, it's nice there, but I mean, at the end of the day, coming into this, there's no vision here for Dusty either. This is just straight Riddle territory. Complete overcommit, 4 members die. I think Dusty, it's signs of desperation that they really wanted something in return for losing out on the bottom side of the map. They felt they had their pick, but it just wasn't the case. Slow Q now getting aggressive onto Warzy as, yeah, set of a Stride Breaker. Gotta make sure you're not in range, as I think fights are just going to get more and more oppressive for now. And we saw that was a free man shockwave, I believe, and it just didn't really deal much damage. Kex, though, a bit overextended, but he's got arc, and he's got flank.
Oh, it will dodge away from the ultimate from Oriana. The shockwave not landing this time around, but the good news for Dusty is the Magi Soul Stealer can't get that much more stack.
I mean, it's fine. This Rumble's only got about 220 AP. Right?
That's fine.
That's not a big deal. Yeah, that's
no worries.
Right. I think it should be about 230 actually. 24 stacks. Night Harvest is a lot of AP too. Yeah, that's okay. There's no worries about a 200 AP champion at 16 minutes into the game.
There's no worries about... You didn't have any worries about the 4K gold lead at 16 minutes into the game either, so... This is only 4K, yeah?
Only 4K as well, okay.
Actually, we're going to see a fight here. 3v2 as PlayStation puts up the shield to make sure that Slowky's not going to be caught out. MC in the sidelines, but it's a little bit far away. Dusty.
Oh, he wants Warzy, maybe.
Looking for something. Diego's moving forward, so it's going to be 4 members of Dusty mid, but they have to stay together, but they can't stay too close together, because otherwise, as we saw in that last skirmish, it can get really, really bad.
Yeah, it can. MC potentially going to get caught out here, trying to farm some camps, but last coin's there. Equalizer Wade as well. And that was 2 ticks of a Night Harvester armor, and it dealt about 400 damage. Oh, 269.
Look at the cooldown, man.
Nice, by the way. Yeah, it's just... Yeah, that's okay. 30 seconds. Yeah. I don't know what possessed
that's
the battle
okay.
team to allow this ultimate to be on such a low cooldown, but I think until they, you know, I mean, here's the thing with Rumble, right? I'm not going to say he's a non-champion without his ultimate, but he's pretty close to a non-champion without his ultimate. The kind of impact that he can actually have in team fights is relatively limited without it. So it's kind of necessary for him to exist, but man, in the jungle role, with the overheat changes, just made him so ridiculously strong. Let's see what Dusty can do here. They're again stacking up in the top side. M-Test going to try and play bait here to slow queue.
And he will be bait, and there's the fishing line, hook line, and sinker. Suplex comes through. The crystalline arrow will not land though. A Slowku trying to get away. PlayStation's coming up. Gooby's coming up from a different angle. Can Set survive? No, he can't. As Sawyer grabs his body. It doesn't look like Gooby and PlayStation really want to take the 3v2. So they'll be forced to back away, but that was seconds from going wrong. But fortunately for Dusty this time around, although Warzy might have overstepped, there's the burn. There's the 25 stacks for MC, and the Rumble picks up a 6.
Yeah, it's okay. Only 300 AP at 19 minutes. Not scary, not worrying at all. And flaunting that AP right there, the overheat plus Rumble equalizer damage showing. Warzy didn't quite have flash either, so that's why MC committed like that. Realized that was a free kill, can drop the Herald, get this tower, probably get a second charge as well. Kex is... Oh, Sawyer. Sawyer should die, but that's fine. Kex doesn't want to pull the trigger there. And at the end of the day, Tempered Aggression still gets them that mid-tier 2 tower, and that's going to open up the map greatly. And when we're talking about not wanting to fight in chokes against Riddle, when we're talking about not wanting to fight into fog, things like that, Riddle can take control of these areas around the mid lane where it's Dusty that has to check into them. It just gives them all the more advantage and all the harder of a time for Dusty to actually play around. Because, I mean, it's one thing to be able to see a frontal engage. It's another to have to consistently guess at which bush it's going to come from.
And you said that Dusty were a team that probably needs to have a little bit more aggression. They needed to be the ones in the driving seat a little bit more in the early stages. Not being the case so much. They haven't had too much success in that just yet, but they still have scaling.
Yeah, but again, I feel like the composition to composition kind of alleviates that issue when you're talking about some of the burst and snap engage that can come out from Riddle here. Warzy's really playing with fire, in my opinion, and could be in a second once MC makes it up.
He could very much be on fire. Slowku actually needs to be a little bit careful. He's about to come through. The equalizer does miss. The suplex lands, but that's a big shield. Slowku, never in doubt, picks up the kill. And now members moving down towards this mid lane. Sawyer, Baloo, and Varus trying to get onto Creepy. He's going to be able to get away. And now PlayStation with the crystalline arrow is going to land onto Sawyer. He's going to jump away from the glacial fissure, but Baloo, one more auto will be enough to slow him up. The concussive burst comes through from the Winter's Fight as the godlike Rat Rumble picks up another kill. You can see members of Riddle moving towards the Baron buff, and I don't think there's any way Dusty can contest this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's going to take an absolute miracle from the Dusty side of things. We've got the teleport coming down from Zombie. They also need Warzy's teleport, but he doesn't have Shockwave. He just used it on the top side, so even when he gets here, he's not going to have that tool available. Now there's a teleport too from Set. Zombie potentially turned on too. But Riddle on this Baron, what are Dusty going to do?
They're going to try and contest this. They're jumping on top of PlayStation and on top of Zombie. Damage coming down. Kex is doing so much. Zombie dipping and diving through the fight, trying to clear off the Baron boss. That's a huge ornament from the Malphite. He goes down. Warzy dances away. Members of Riddle have actually fallen here as M-Test is going to be chased away. They're looking for revenge. They want to get rid of every single member who contested them. Baloo's the only survivor. Riddle lose 3 members, but 2 have Baron.
Yeah, and honestly, the 2 most important members have Baron. I think the important underlining fact there, MC and Gooby, the 2 carry members here. It doesn't matter if the frontliners don't have it. Realistically, in this situation, Dusty, I mean, it's been desperation for a while. They had to try and go for this engage. You can see the face breaker is really nice. It buys a lot of time. MC and Gooby commit onto this Baron Bites. The equalizer on top of the Malphite ultimate as well, which just turns his fire around. But you can see, honestly, Dusty did a lot of damage. I think it was more because MC and Gooby were committed onto that Baron, so the frontliners of Riddle were definitely a little bit alone there. But at the end of the day, they are the ones that secure that neutral objective, and they almost fully aced them. Only Baloo left to tell the tale. What a sad tale it has been for Dusty so far in this game.
But that was the most promising fight we've seen so far. I think it's fair to say, and that's a good sign. Yes, Riddle come out with 2 Baron buffed up many members, but Dusty slight improvement there. Didn't think they'd get anything from it, but the gold graph is, it's a story.
Yeah, I think only time Dusty have had a gold lead in this game, probably that first blood period. Between that first blood and then them handing over the kills to MC and Care. And since then,
arrows landed onto water. There's the equalizer. All of the ultimates being blown just for poke at this point. And look at the health bars from Dusty. The equalizer is almost a quarter back. And
yeah,
honestly, Riddle, they can just afford to throw these abilities whenever they want. Slowky maybe looking for a flank, but Dusty smart to this and will back away
just
from this
give this
tower.
Yeah,
Give it away.
It's a tier 2, which at the end of the day, this side of the map is gone already. You try and save the remainder of the base. The top side could be a potential target for Riddle if they want to go up there, but with the Dragon Nut, MC's already taking it actually, so it's probably just going to be a pretty quick rotation. MC can catch another mid wave if he wants to, so potentially thinking about it, there you go. So this next wave, MC wants to walk to the mid lane, he can. Riddle want to rotate up to the top side, they can. Just, you know, optimal use of the Baron, but at the end of the day, they only walked out with 2 members, and they did have that death time to delay them a tad. So some jungle camps seems to be the prize, and it's the Ocean Soul, 5 minutes away. The next Baron, 3 minutes away, or 3 minutes and a half or so. Just play towards these neutrals, bring Dusty into them, because at the end of the day, what can Dusty realistically do in some of these team fights? Reasonably, the answer is not too much, unless Riddle stack up on top of each other, give Dusty an opportunity for a massive wombo. Even then, there's a lot of tools to stop members from going down. Got things like the Zhonya's, Therax Gauge, and all the general tankiness of slow Q. Gooby's got Cleanse available. By the time the next neutral objective spawns, he should have his flash. And he's even got the Gale Force for the added mobility of that to add on top of just being a little bit safe with the utility of Braum. Which is very, very difficult, in my opinion, for Dusty to actually find a way back in at the moment.
But glimmers of hope. If they can get a catch on someone like MC, yes, he's got the Zhonya's, so that's difficult, as you've already mentioned, but then he loses a lot of stacks off that Magi. The damage he can do does decrease. It's still ridiculous, don't get me wrong, but it's a high value kill. There are a couple of decent sized bounties on the members who did have Baron. That's also just fallen off, so glimmers of hope maybe for Dusty. I mean, the last team fight they fought was okay. So, yes, I'm not saying that they're in a good position, but there is potential. Now, Riddle moving to this top side, don't have Baron and Power minions anymore, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult for them to siege. Malphite isn't here as well, and Dusty just going to be happy to clear out these minions and try and get as late as possible to try and even out this gold lead.
Yeah, can do their best here. I think the scary thing is, even if they pick up those shutdowns, they're still going to be about 8k down. Which is the ridiculous thing here. I think Riddle can just chuck out a couple of ultimates here from Fog, like so.
Arrow, there's the equalizer, the Glacial Vision follows through, and goodbye, Mtez. The tower will fall as well. As you can see, Malphite, the Unstoppable Force is still available, remember, so re-engage is a possibility for Riddle. The Malphite burns a little bit due to the Orianna, but this is going to be the first inhib being broken down. Riddle really setting up in the enemy base right now. Dusty have 4 members to defend. Warzy trying to clear out the mid lane minions, but Riddle, happy with what they've gained, are just going to get out of dodge for now, leave town, and get themselves some items.
Yeah, don't do much more. They've got that inhib, so they can just reset, open back out to the bottom side, or honestly, wherever they please. With Baron spawning in a minute's time, they can just stay up here. Oh, look at Flay. Flay actually has members. He has defend him. Oh, was he?
He's okay. He's fine. It's okay. Don't worry. No harsh attacks here.
Yeah.
It's
409. Ultimate Hunter. Doesn't actually have the tenacity ring fully stacked. That's got to be a bug. Or did they nerf it to only give it 25% tenacity on the most recent patch? And I didn't miss it.
I don't think.
I feel like it should. I'm pretty sure it still gives 30%. Maybe it's just a hot bug. Spectator lying to us.
It's always a spectator, isn't it? The equalizer's back up, by the way. Just for those of you keeping score, it's already available.
Actually, okay. Will. What's the cooldown on the equalizer right now? If you had to give it a number.
Oh, what, seconds?
Yeah.
Let's say 26.
No, it's about 37.
I got a 6 right, you know, and that's moving. That Baron's pretty much already gone, and
but
Dusty's very careful. Yeah, they have no vision of this, how low it is. The Baron's already been taking the Crystalline Arrow, fighting its way through every member, and the damage coming down is just massive. Riddle are going to chase through. That's a huge unstoppable force. Everyone is melted through. The damage is massive from Riddle. They take every single member down. They take the ace. They're going to take the base, and they're going to take the game.
Yeah, I think that team fight summarizes much of how this game has been for the last 28 minutes. And Riddle finally going to knock down Dusty's Nexus here. Doesn't matter if you can take down Fnatic, take down Riddle. I think your one win for the good isn't going to get you very far, as today is Riddle who will best Dusty, and honestly, very, very decisive. A little bit slower pace if you're being pretty critical, but at the end of the day, I think the lead that they procured in the early game just made this game so repressive for Dusty to ever be able to come back into.
There's nothing that they could do. MC dominated the jungle so hard that it was almost a flawless performance from everyone except Booby's Internet, pretty much. And Jamala, was there ever any way of Dusty coming back into that?
I mean, I think once that double kill went over and then we saw a couple more kills handed off to MC, I think it was in the bottom side, or the mid lane play, it just felt very, very difficult. I think from that point on, you've lost the ability to try and bully the Malphite anymore. The bottom side, it's doable, but you still have to wait to level 6. But if you're already behind and you never have mid lane priority, then that becomes a very hard task too. So yeah, I think in a way, draft let them down. I don't think it was objectively a poor draft, at surface level, but into what Riddle were running, I feel like you just have to get a lead. Otherwise, the team fighting abilities are just way too much for them to deal with.
The press R comp really working out this time around. We're going to go to a short break, but when we come back, the analyst desk is going to talk to us about all those huge ultimates. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a few minutes.